we've got two new unique units coming out of 1.8 we're really excited for. We've got the Warpok Jezzails, they're the first unit, and you can think of them as a sniper unit. So basically what they're going to do is, obviously being the longest unit in the game, you can kind of shoot from the top lane to the bottom lane, you can position them well, and the reason that's really interesting is because they have penetration on shot. Now penetration is obviously going to allow 100% damage to the first unit, and then any unit behind that is actually going to take 50% of damage, so that positioning is really key, and getting that right is perfect. So the other thing as well is the knockback as well that they have is quite substantial, so really getting them into a good position is what you need to do, but they are very weak, so easily counterable with the right units and spells. The other unit that we have is the Warp Grinders. They're really cool and unique as well, a new summon to kind of bolster out that mechanic of units that we have in the game. They kind of pop up underground behind enemy lines, hitting the towers and the warlords. They do focus those objectives, and they work really well with kind of synergistic combos, CC, blocking with the tower with larger units like the Gargants, and then popping these guys out of nowhere for additional damage. Kind of thinking of them as a pseudo burn card to kind of really help that kind of archetypal based play. Okay, so balance changes for this patch. Again, it's a pretty big one, pretty interesting. So two main features for us really on this one. First one is split damage for spells. So this is pretty interesting. It allows us to play around with things. Essentially what it is, spells will now do 50% of their damage less to towers than they do to units. This has kind of allowed us to fix some issues with some outstanding cards like Doom Divers and Burning Head, now have a lot more damage to units without making them completely broken against the towers. So this is really interesting. We're kind of shaking things up. So some other units as well have really benefited from this, like Spirit Hosts, one of the biggest buffs I think coming out on this one, so definitely watch out for those guys, give them a try. But we're really interested to see what this kind of does for the balancing of the meta and allows us as a design team to kind of balance things a bit better. The other major change that we've got going on is the stat ramping for certain kind of durations and abilities in the game. So modifiers and durations essentially will now have different stat ramps from the usual kind of stat ramping. Again, this is just another thing, quality of life, allowing the designers to kind of play and get a little bit more finesse with some things. So some units that we have basically will now have different ramping, allowing us to basically scale things like FROSTHEART Phoenix a little better into the late game and allowing them to kind of be more consistent across the game. So anything with a modifier or duration has now kind of been moved over to this new stat ramp, so definitely look out for those cards as well.
With 1.8 we're introducing two new events. One is recurrent events that are faction themed and are featuring cards from the faction we're teaming it after. The other one is spotlight events that we're using to introduce new content featuring a fixed deck built around the new unit that we want to introduce with the spotlight event. This is built to let the players experiment with the new mechanics that we introduce inside the core gameplay with the new unit. We're really excited to roll out this fresh new event system. We have big plans for the future and we can't wait for you players to get your hands on it.